There once was a man named Gold Roger who was king of the pirates. He had fame, power, and wealth beyond your wildest dreams. Before they hung him from the gallows, these were the final words he said.
Our perspective is yours for the taking, but you'll have to join us first. We left everything we debated at the Yonko table.
Ever since, pirates from all over the world set sail for the Grand Line, searching for the Yonko table, the table that will make their dreams come true.
Yo, folks, welcome to the latest and the greatest from the Yonko table. That is the voice of Grandmaster Hoop coming at you from the Colby Theater again, because now we are back with our Oscars post show. That's right, folks. We hit you with our preview and who we thought would be the winners, who might get snubbed, who deserves the top seed in the 95th Oscars, the Academy Awards. And now we're back to tell it all about what we took away from the show and how we feel about the wins, the losses, the performances, everything. But I've said too much already. I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins over once again to Supernova, Dr. Rika. Dr. Rika, this seat is yours. The talking stick is yours. This is your show, by all means.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm throwing you overboard as we slide into our last conversation on the end of the award season for 2022-2023. It's been long. I think the last 2 years we've seen it, because the Oscars have been in March, April-ish, we've had to wait quite a while for the end of award season. So I'm curious how y'all are feeling now that we have reached the end. We know what the Best Picture winner is, at least via the Academy. We may have some thoughts personally on that particular pick, but how are you feeling about the end of the award season and the movement into a new one?
I kind of feel good that it's over. Happy that it's over. It's been a long award season for some reason. I'm sure we'll get into why it may have felt that way throughout this conversation. But, I was also doing like some cramming this past couple of weeks in terms of trying to catch up with all the Oscar movies before, the award ceremony. And so to kind of like be able to like breathe easy, maybe not see a movie this weekend, kind of look forward to like Air and maybe the Super Mario Brothers movie. Movies that may or may not be competing next year. But, I think it's nice. I'm kind of happy that we've kind of reached its conclusion and kind of, I can breathe a little easy now.
I'm happy it's over, I guess. I cannot celebrate because I am left with a tainted taste in my mouth and it is overshadowing all the joy. But I'm glad it's over. Time to move on. Time to look at what's ahead of us next. And, this Oscar season, maybe it set a precedent moving forward. As we talked about, more diverse films, more zany, more kooky, not always these dramas and melodramas. Maybe we'll see some, out there entries in this next season. So I'm glad it's over. I'm happy to see what the future holds.
Okay. I feel pretty similarly to you all as far as just being glad that it's come to an end. At the same time, just thinking about what we can do a little differently, and this may kind of lead into what my next question is, as far as like not making it feel like such a marathon. I think that in years past, things have felt like they've wrapped up kind of nicely. I think most of the time Oscars have fallen like in February, pretty close to the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl was like a month ago.
Yep.
And there's something about having to kind of stick with this whole process for a little bit longer than we have in the past. That I don't know, the excitement that I think I've had in years past doesn't quite feel the same. I was really happy for a lot of the wins last night, which I imagine we'll talk about. But yeah, I think we could do for a little bit of a shorter run in terms of just the Oscars, the award season in general. This kind of leads me into what you thought about the show. whether it be the host, so Jimmy Kimmel, of course, returns, the production, bits, speeches, commercials, you know, musical performances, just the crux of the show, like the bones and whatnot, and then we'll talk about specifically some of the wins.
Yeah, it's funny you said, like shorting maybe like the time period of what we would consider Oscar season, because I think like part of the reason this one felt maybe a little extra longer is that I think so much was like already a foregone conclusion. So many of the winners, it feels like we've known since January, like since like the Golden Globes, it feels like. So, in like this kind of a weird way, it kind of just took, at least for me, a lot of the air out of the overall event, where it was just like, oh, that one, I've known that for the last couple months. Oh, that one also, I saw that coming for the past couple months. So like, I mean, I'm an awards show lover. I'm going to keep coming back. I'll be back next year, no matter how well this one did. But at the end of the day, I think I found this one a little boring. It didn't feel like it had the highs of maybe, years past. But I think the biggest thing that I felt like was missing were some of the surprises. I felt like all the winners just kind of felt like expected, and even the ones you were like maybe like rooting for or against, even those results kind of ended up just like kind of being as expected as well. How do you feel, Grandmaster Hoop?
I guess in years past, most award shows I care to pay attention to were the Golden Globes and the Oscars. And I always used to do, you won the Golden Globe, you're probably in line for the Oscars, like you're in the lead. And this award season, and I'd hate to blame y'all, Hooper TV and Dr. Rika, but I think
us,
yes, y'all have kept me up to date and in check with every award show and every win, and got to a point where I guess, I kind of, to your sentiments, Super TV, it didn't feel as surprising. I was like, oh yeah, they won the BAFTA, they won the Critics' Choice, they won the SAG Award. I was like, damn, I used to never know this. So they're left the surprise element out of it, which is fine in the grand scheme of it all. But I didn't even watch the show because I couldn't log in to ABC, or our mother's provider doesn't have live TV.
Tell the truth.
I tried to log in.
The Last of Us.
I was gonna watch
The Last of Us.
I was gonna watch an hour of the Oscars, then watch The Last of Us. That was my plan. And then I ended up, I don't know, watching Big Mama's House 2 because I couldn't get the Oscars up. So
wow.
And then the Oscars wasn't up till
Big Mama House 2 over the Oscars. Correct. And the Oscars was not up on Hulu at 7 a.m. this morning when I woke up. And I was like, just screw it all. I guess I'll go watch the acceptance speeches and whatnot. So my whole viewing experience was shattered. It was tarnished. But I'm watching it currently right now. It's literally playing to my right. I don't know. As Dr. Rico was saying, or whoever said it. Or someone said it. It's kind of routine almost. No fun elements. No Hugh Jackman bursting out into song. No selfie with infamous Kevin Spacey. I don't know what else makes an Oscar show an Oscar show. Performance wise, I don't know. It was a show. It was an award, and boom. Not much to it. I was bored. Yeah, it was boring. Boring show.
Yeah,
wow.
I do think that they tried to overcorrect last year.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
We need to be as safe as possible because last year was a shit show. By nobody's fault on the production team, but I think at this point they were like, whatever we can try to control, we're going to try to control. And unfortunately, I think the things that do make the Oscars, or can make the Oscars fun, is some of the back and forth, is having comedy that's actually like consistently funny. I think Kimmel came out, gave a pretty decent, I think, monologue. I think the opener was okay. But then we didn't see him all that frequently. And the times in which he did come back just didn't really land for me. And so it's nice having kind of a consistent host. We did last year as well. I know that it was shared between, three women, but I do think that.
Was that the gimmick last year?
Yeah, last year we had, Amy Schumer. It was Regina Hall. Was it Wanda Sykes as well?
Oh God,
Yes.
I don't remember that. Wow. Okay.
I think also they were doing a thing last year where it felt like different people like would do like more elaborated bits.
Yeah.
And that led to one famous one in which, ended in a way that I think the Oscars didn't see coming. And to your point, I think like that moment last year kind of like overshadowing the rest of the Oscars. It was just like felt like they like went into this one like, all right, let's just play it by the book. Like, let's just let's get these awards up here. Let's hand out some awards. Let's do the original songs. And Jimmy Kimmel will host. And yeah, they just kind of played it right down the middle. They did bring out the donkey, which was a nice touch. They had the opening when Jimmy kind of came out, landed like via parachute. But like outside of that, it felt like a very, like old Oscars. It felt like we were watching one from like what I imagined was like the 60s. I've never seen an Oscars from the 60s, but that's kind of what it felt like.
Oscars from the 60s might be better show. Might have more tap dancing. Who knows?
I do think that what's unfortunate is there were some ideas I actually could have been on board with if it was like within a more exciting show. Like I liked the cinematography presentation. So you had, two superstars who were in currently the #1 movie in the box office. So you had Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors come out to present best cinematography, and Michael B. Jordan, who directed, Creed 3, explained kind of the camera work of Orson Welles, the camera work of Malcolm X, and they have the actual camera there, and we're describing some of those pieces, even like the best editing. They had that little thing going on in the background of like one person from back in the day who was like splice it together film, and then the other person on a computer doing Dune. So they had some things that I liked. The costumes were in the back during the best costume, so they had some things that I really appreciated and want to see more of, which was like explain what makes a film, like what puts together ultimately what we watch and what's been being nominated, and let people know kind of from these celebrities that they're familiar with, people like Michael B. Jordan, people like Jonathan Majors, Zendaya, whoever it may be, like what it's like to create these films. I think that's how you get investment. It's just everything that was around it was pretty dull in terms of like.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Sorry to interrupt, but just to add on to your point, it felt like there was like a level of star quality that was missing. I think when Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors appeared on the screen, there was like, oh, we got some movie stars. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's just because I just seen them in Creed 3, but it just felt like, where was Zendaya? Where was Tom Holland? Where is this like? It was like, and it's this like interesting kind of thing. It was like they were missing kind of like both like the older generation. Tom Cruise didn't show up. I think Denzel Washington was at a basketball game.
Basketball
likely,
game.
There was like no Brad Pitt. There was no Leonardo DiCaprio. There was just kind of like this old guard. Obviously, there was not the best actor winner last year. There was kind of just like this old guard that was missing. But it also kind of felt like the young guard also wasn't quite there as well. And, it kind of like led to this feeling of like, almost like it wasn't like the big event.
We don't
There's
care.
something about seeing Tom. Well, there's something about seeing Tom Hanks in the front row or Meryl Streep in the front
No,
row.
I'm saying
like,
they're
every
saying
time.
they don't care anymore.
Well, there's
Maybe.
probably
You know, it's
yeah, there's probably
Yeah.
something to just like it doesn't feel, as prestigious or as important unless you were specifically nominated.
Right.
Mhm.
Because I'm even thinking of, and actually I'm gonna self-correct. I believe Creed 3 was #1 last weekend. This past weekend, I think, was Scream 6 that was #1 in the box office.
Ooh.
To that point, Jenna Ortega is like the biggest young star that's on the rise.
She just did
hosted-
SNL.
Fly her out.
Yeah.
She can't. She's
Yeah.
tired. She's like 21.
Well,
She's got
what
to
I'm
get
saying
sleep.
is on the end, as far as a production standpoint, I'm flying her out. I'm like, okay, you literally just hosted SNL. You got the #1, movie in the box office. You had one of the biggest shows on Netflix. I'm flying you out. You're going to present. And
Yes,
so it's
absolutely.
to Hooper TV's point of there's this old guard that is not present, but also kind of the young up and comers where people who are younger folks are invested in are also not present. And so there is that kind of missing link. And it just, like you said, the star power of like who's coming out and giving these presenting and, who's part of the show that did go missing.
Yeah, it kind of had the feel of like another award show. It almost felt like this wasn't quite the Oscars. It's
There
like,
was no Ariana DeBose number. That could have been fun.
Yeah, they didn't quite take risk. They were very just kept it. It was like just like a fastball down the middle. It's like, let's not get cute. Let's not try to do anything too crazy outside the box. Like, we just want a fastball down the middle. We just want to play it straight this year. And, maybe that's what they needed this year, but I think it led to, unfortunately, a show that was just, I think it didn't lead to like people rushing to Twitter and be like, oh, what is everybody saying about this movie? It kind of like was like lacking moments like those, in my opinion. So
No zeitgeist.
yeah.
I guess that kind of leads me then into the center of the show, beyond what all the production and who's showing up and what are the bits, the funny parts, the performances, etc. Are the winners. And I think to y'all's point you made a little earlier, I think we've sort of known where the tide was turning in terms of some of the big wins. And I just want to mention a few things before we kind of get into the nitpicks and whatnot. But as far as shutouts, so there were 3 films that some folks thought would get something, whether it was below the line, some more technical artistry awards, above the line for acting, directing, whatever, writing, etc. But Tar, Elvis, Banshees were all shut out. Did not win anything.
Yeah.
And some
Babylon also. Babylon didn't win anything.
Babylon, The Fablemans. And then, of course, we had the 2 big winners. So I think you were mentioning Twitter. The funniest jokes that I saw were actually in relation to All Quiet on the Western Front. So the way that the show was set up, for those of you who haven't watched Grandmaster Who, is that
Watching it right now.
You had like a chunk of pretty well-known winners at the start, because you had Best Animated Feature, you had the supporting that went back to back. And then the chunk in the middle was a lot of the technical artistry awards. And a lot of those went to All Quiet on the Western Front. And so a lot of the jokes that I was seeing on Twitter was like, it's getting a little loud on the Western Front. Because they're racking up a lot of awards, like what's going on here. And then, of course, we do know that the biggest winner of the night with 7 is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Any thoughts on kind of these snubs/sweeps before we start to pick apart the categories?
Well, I'll just quickly say that I think the sweeps led to a little bit of the kind of lack of excitement, if you will, because it was fun to see Kiki Kwan win. It was fun to like maybe see the Daniels take the stage, the first time, you know? But kind of like once it just kind of like again, 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 I think it had a little bit of repetitiveness to it. But not only that, it like didn't allow you the opportunity to like maybe celebrate another one where it was like, you know, let's say if like Elvis like snuck in a costume. It's like, well, the Elvis fans now have like something to kind of cheer for. You know, maybe they like pan to Boz Lerman, we see him in the crowd, and Austin Butler gives like a wink to the camera or something like that. You know, we didn't quite get that. You know, Babylon could have won for like production. You know, but as we said, like a lot of the technical categories just like kept going to All Quiet on the Western Front. Most of the acting and above the line categories went to Everything Everywhere. And so it was almost like, all right, if you're here to celebrate one of these two movies, you're probably having a great night. If you're here to celebrate movies as a whole, you know, or maybe like you're rooting for like a handful of different movies being spotlighted, then it wasn't quite your night.
Yeah. It does make me think of the year Parasite won, because Bong Joon-ho won obviously Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, and I believe International Feature. And I think they were
director.
Oh, yes, okay. I believe they were pretty well spread out, that it didn't feel too like there was something of like not necessarily surprise. I think the Best Picture win was more of like there was a swell of just emotion, but I think it was so well placed that folks were kind of like, oh, okay, go with that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you'd get some other awards, and then he's back again. Like there's this excitement. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think because of the way things were ordered, if it felt the same, because you had like this back to back of All Quiet is coming up here, and we're not familiar with some of these folks, but then also Everything Everywhere was going up there as well. And some, obviously, the big names we're familiar with, and we did see the Daniels multiple times, so I imagine we had some familiarity. But I think some of the order had to do with that as well. It did become a bit more predictable, where it wasn't as fun to be invested, because you're like, likely this is what's going to happen. And so it just reminded me of that. Like Parasite did rack up quite a few, but I think because of the placement, there was still some excitement within finding out who it is that's going to go up there and give another speech.
Yeah, and I promise to move off this point after this. You know, like there's something about the Parasite win that nobody saw coming, because like I think a lot of the precursor award shows were going with 1917 or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and there was like, I think there was a lot of excitement around, you know, for better or worse, like Joker that year. There was like Little Woman was, you know, a lot of people's number one faves. Jojo Rabbit, I think, was also kind of like mixed to different people, but really beloved by certain other people. And, you know, it just felt like watching the Oscars the Parasite year, it was like when, Bong Joon-ho took the stage for like, I think like Best Director, it was like, oh, wow, like this is great to see him honored this way, you know. He might not win Best Picture, but there was like excitement. And then when it finally became true, it was like this jubilation, kind of like overcoming. So, for whatever reason, it could have been the placement, but it didn't quite feel like, it kind of just felt like, all right, the train's on the tracks and it's going to like stay, rather than like this, like almost like crescendo we were reaching by the end. Did you feel that way, Grandmaster Hoop?
You know, it's just, I think watching the show and looking at like kind of the nominees and all these other categories and whatnot, that is where I think is the best time to celebrate all the other films that are not necessarily up for Best Picture or Best Director. And it seems like the voting now just simply goes to, I don't know, people just want the sweep to happen. I guess, sweeps aren't as exciting and whatnot. And it just just like watching it, like for example, I was really happy for costume, because you know that went to something outside of what's already been winning the whole time. And you know, when you look at the nominees in all these categories, you really, you know, I really like to think, man, are they not really looking at all these works and like all the work put into it? Like, I get it. It's a superhero film. I'm talking the Batman, but it's like there's some really good stuff here.
Yeah, a
And
lot of people were rooting for, I think, sound in that, for that one.
which I was actually happy about sound too, going to what that was Top Gun. Yeah, I was happy for that.
Yeah.
But there's other categories where I'm just like, damn, Tar, zero. All the hype about Tar and it can't win anything. I guess that really was some good cinematography, getting that downward shot of her doing all that and nothing. So it takes, I don't know, it takes away the hopes of the little guy watching at home, and it's just like, if you don't get on board with these Oscar baited films, then it's like, you got nothing to look forward to.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I was so excited to see RRR win for Best Original Song. And not only that, see that like performance. Okay.
Oh yeah, that probably was the coolest moment that I've seen.
If there was one moment that got me super excited and like captivated by what was happening on screen, it was absolutely the RRR original song performance. Just like was so cool. Was like everybody was like just so talented, so like in sync. That was awesome. A great way to honor that moment in the movie. And I think it was almost like for me, I was like, all right, hopefully these voters got it right. And if not, hopefully they have an opportunity to change their votes. Cause like seeing each of the best original songs like be performed, it was clear what the winner was. And it was clearly RRR. So I was glad like that actually came out to be the truth, and that was able to get its win. Because if you watched all those original song performances, there was one clear stand away winner, and it was the only opportunity it had to win an award. So if you were really into that movie, then like that's what you're rooting for. So it was cool that that we got to see that win in that category.
I guess that'll go ahead and take us into just talking about some of the winners. And so I don't have any particular order. I would prefer to talk about, the top 6 near the end of our conversation. So if there are any kind of standouts that you all have already started to mention, whether it be sound, song, score, etc., animated feature, anything in terms of like animated docs, shorts, technical artistry, feel free to start throwing some of those out there. I think I am in agreement that I was excited for RRR to get something from the night. I think, clearly in terms of the 5 that we did get, it didn't feel as like obviously impactful as the scene in the film. So please, people, go watch the film because there's something to that. But it was nice to just be able to see that representation. I think this is the first song like ever from, a Tollywood film that's been nominated, which is wild considering the vast array of just music and musicals that they produce. But
did you say from Bollywood?
No, Tollywood. So
from
it's
Tollywood, because Telugu, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, very cool thing. Funny enough, watching that performance, because this is the first time I heard most of all these songs. So that was my first time listening to Not To. And I was like, oh man, this is giving Jai Ho vibes, which is, I feel, a very easy take to make.
Have you not seen the movie?
I have not seen the movie.
But
like the vibes of just kind of that Southeast Asian Bollywood, Tollywood vibe of break out into song and dance, and looking at the lyrics, they were translated. I was like, oh, this song is literally just about dancing and enjoying time romantically or whatever. And I was like, I could care less about Sophia Carson, who I was like, oh, Descendants. She's from Descendants. What's she doing here? And I don't think I cared for any of the other songs played at all. But I enjoyed that performance. I enjoyed that win. Very fun moment. Very cool to see. I'm probably gonna try to learn a little bit of that dance.
You can also watch the movie.
It's 182 minutes. I'll try.
You saw Avatar.
I should have watched
And the
Avatar.
Batman.
I should have watched them both as a series, and 45 minutes each, and just binge it. As far as I watch 45 a day and call it a movie. I'm happy for Guillermo del Toro coming out and saying animation is not a genre. It is the movement. It is cinema. And Hooper TV, I disagree with you. This was a tough year in animation. Granted, I still haven't seen Marcel, but I was happy for Pinocchio. But it is a tough year. I'm throwing that out there. So I was happy to see that win.
Yeah, same. I mean, like, everybody loves Guillermo del Toro. I was what felt like kind of like one of the few fans of Nightmare Alley was it 2 years ago? Maybe it was 2 years ago.
No, last year.
It was last year, yeah.
Wow, he's just been working. Even though I think he's been working on Pinocchio for like years.
He's been working on Pinocchio for like 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, everybody loves Guillermo del Toro, and I think, I was like, they started with like animated feature, and that was like an interesting first choice because that hasn't been done before, right? I feel like animated usually is somewhere in the middle. Yeah. I was unsure about like that as like a choice because that feels like, like a cool one you get like halfway through the middle. But even though I liked Pinocchio and I liked a lot of these animated movies, but I wasn't like in love with any of them. But still happy to see Guillermo del Toro in there. So yeah, that was probably one of the non All Quiet on the Western Front categories that was like cool to see. And obviously, like, I think is almost anything like not including, no offense to them, the shorts or the documentary features, anything that didn't quite go to All Quiet on the Western Front was like kind of fun to see for me, in the sense of like, yeah, it was cool, like Top Gun having a moment. It was like cool, in my opinion, for RRR to have its moment, and I kind of like wanted more of that. And I think when it like didn't quite come is when, almost like maybe this like resentment for All Quiet on the Western Front started like secretly like building inside of me, I guess. Because I would have liked to see Babylon had win production design or, something else.
Who took home production? Was it All Quiet
on the Western?
Yeah. No, I guess wars are hard to recreate. There's a church group that recreates the American Revolution down the street in the local park. Whatever.
The thing that is pretty frustrating in terms of like All Quiet's racking up of awards is clearly there is still a appreciation by some academy members for war movies. And we talked about some films that we felt were snubbed. The Woman King is a war movie. Maybe not the one that folks tend to think about or anticipate in terms of it's not World War I or II or Vietnam, or Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, etc. So there is this tendency, I think, to kind of shy away from other types of history. So that was frustrating of like, okay, so we win production design and score and cinematography. And I think there's some other things in there that other films that I liked more in comparison.
Absolutely.
But I think just in general of like, okay, so you still have an appreciation for this type of like film, and there are other ways in which that's been presented that you really didn't find any appreciation for, and I'm curious about why that may be. So,
did anyone pick up the low key shade from Jimmy when he shouted out Viola and I don't know her name from Till?
I
was at an Oscar party, so I like didn't get to quite like hear like the monologue as much as I wanted to. No, what did he say there?
He gave them shout outs, and he was just like he felt they should have been here nominated. And I mean, I only watch, I'm watching it currently still. I only watched a little bit, but he eventually like kind of goes through all the nominees as far as actors and supporting go. Um, I don't recall anything about Andrea Riseborough.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was pretty quiet, and I would say throughout the show, she wasn't really mentioned all that much.
Right.
Which probably should, yeah. I think that's probably a smart choice. But I'm curious in terms of we've been kind of discussing a lot about All Quiet's wins in those particular categories. I think there's some left for Babylon in terms of production design and score. Any other thoughts on some of those like artistic or technical categories? I was really happy for the costume design win.
I was just about to say, who's that? Ruth, right?
Ruth Carter. She now is the only Black woman who has won multiple Oscars in any category.
Right.
I did see that.
Yeah.
But also, too, I mean, I feel this has got to be something too. I don't know. She won the award for the original and the sequel. I don't know how many times that's done where anybody can say I got an Oscar for the original.
I wonder about like The Godfather. I don't know.
I'm sure the Godfather team. Yeah, probably.
Maybe I don't know. though. So.
Maybe if Batman Begins won some sound and then Dark Knight won some sound. Wally pissed for.
Interesting.
But I think she's got that locked. I can't think of anybody who's won for an original and the sequel. And honestly, when her speech, I really liked her speech too, saying, this award was for the Black woman. I felt that was low key for Angela too.
I think she mentioned too a focus on her mother.
Yes, very much her mother as well. Yes, which I liked how she wrapped it up. It all tied back to her mother. But no, that was a really good win. I really liked that win for Black Panther.
And one of the surprises, to be honest, I think, as we've mentioned, like if you were like a Babylon stan, that was like one of the few opportunities. Like Babylon was in contention for something. If you were a big Elvis fan, then kind of zooming out, that was like kind of one of the maybe awards you could see Elvis being like a winner there. And then of course it had Everything Everywhere All at Once, also like this thing that's been like just a juggernaut in any category it's in. And so to see like Black Panther kind of like rise above all of it, and come out as the winner, a movie that's definitely had a more mixed reception than the first one. Yeah. And, I think was, I guess a bit of a surprise in terms of being back at the Oscars, in terms of like, and kind of like one of the few Marvel movies that kind of gets Oscar recognition also.
It's like the only one.
But it comes out a winner,
Oh, it comes out a winner, sure.
Yeah, it comes out a winner twice in like this category. So, it always seems like, a cool win for Black Panther, I think in like both years. But like this year even more felt like a surprise. So
I would agree. And to your point, as far as it being the only kind of success for Marvel in terms of wins, but even just like where it is nominated. So most cases, most Marvel movies have been nominated in visual effects, but Black Panther's one of the only films that's gotten like costume design, production design, best picture, acting, as far as nominations. So I think there's something to that, and then her win as well. But I'm curious, in discussing visual effects, we of course all predicted Avatar: The Way of Water would win this. Something I did want to bring up, not to compare, but definitely to stir up a little bit of conversation. Something I didn't anticipate, but maybe I should have, with last night's show, is we got a lot of like introductions of like commercials or trailers or company montages. We have the WB montage that was introduced by Margot Robbie.
Oh yeah.
And then we had the trailer,
the Little
Mermaid
trailer.
And so I think it's interesting on a night where Avatar: The Way of Water won visual effects for, things that they actively had to create to make this happen. We got a new trailer for a film that doesn't, visual effects wise, look great,
Is that the consensus? Is that the consensus that it doesn't look great?
It doesn't look great.
I think that is probably the consensus. I mean, I think we've all felt this, like, ever since, like, seeing clips. I mean, do I want to go back to, like, even, like, some, like, the previous movies? Like, I think the whole live-action animated Disney charade that they've been doing the past, like, almost a decade now has been hit or miss, to say the least, controversial in a bit. In a little bit of ways. Yeah, and then to do the underwater or half underwater story, Little Mermaid always seemed like, well, that one's gonna be tough. And it's it's proving that, based off of what we've seen, that it may have been difficult and they may have bit off more than they can chew. And to your point about, James Cameron, Avatar Way of Water, James Cameron taking a decade to wait for the technology to catch up with his vision may have been the right move, because it looks like this Little Mermaid movie that, let's cut them a little slack. Maybe it's been in production for the past 3 years or something like that.
This one's been in production for a while. Don't get twisted. But
yeah, I said 3 years is a long production.
I think it's been longer than 3 years. But
either way,
5.
I would say
it's been enough. I don't know if it's been enough.
Well, I would say it feels like James Cameron has set the bar, but no one's using what he's doing, or nobody wants to put the time and effort. Because I mean, we have seen a trend of water-related films: Avatar, Aquaman, Little Mermaid, Black Panther. Like
Aquaman's kind of good.
Aquaman did fine.
I kind of like Aquaman. I liked it visually.
Yes, it was fun.
I don't think I wasn't on the Wakanda Forever pod, which you can listen to.
Good job.
But
you can also listen to Avatar: The Way of Water.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. I really did not like the visuals whenever they went into the underwater city. It just felt like unfinished.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like
Marvel's
trying to hide it.
Marvel's having VFX problems throughout their projects, so it seems we're gonna have continued issues with Marvel VFX. I'm just gonna say this about The Little Mermaid: I'm gonna wait until I watch it on the big screen for like the water and whatnot. But the character designs of the animal friends, vomitrocious. I'm gonna say that right now. Vomitrocious. I don't know what they're doing. They don't look fun. They're about to command, because Ariel can't talk half the movie, so they're gonna be talking. I heard Aquafina's voice, and I was like, "Damn, that's right. Aquafina is Scuttle."
What did you want them to look like?
Better.
Aquafina Scuttle.
Aquafina is Scuttle. David Diggs is Sebastian, and Jacob Tremblay is Flounder.
What is it? I want to know what you think. Oh, my cat just fell. I
don't know. I think Aquafina.
You've seen what a seagull looks like. You don't.
She should hold herself to higher standards. She doesn't need to be Scuttle. But all that to say is, to bring it back to the Oscars last night, is that, of course, Avatar: Way of Water should win, because James Cameron's able to put like color into his like movies. Why do these movies look so dull and so dark and so tinted? And it's just like, you go see Avatar: Way of Water, and the first half of the movie, or the first third of the movie, I think was like, all right, you have to like re-familiarize yourself and everything. But once you get to that water and it's crystal blue and everything looks gorgeous, and you talk about like the sea friends and the Little Mermaid looking not up to snuff, everybody in James Cameron's world looks like real and imaginative and like, super great. It's like, yeah, I don't know. They should have like snuck onto that set, stolen some technology,
or just hire James Cameron, or hire his visual effects team, or something.
I mean, I think he's got them like locked under
Oh,
You know?
to another
I don't know.
20-year contract.
Yeah, they're going to be busy for 5, 6 more
Yeah,
movies.
I don't
But
think.
yeah, the reason why I brought it up, I think, is mainly just to provide, some context around. I'm sure everyone is working very hard and doing a lot of really good work. But there's something to being able to have the time, the energy, the money to put in all the effort into realizing your vision. And I think we see that represented pretty well in visual effects as far as Avatar: The Way of Water. Any additional thoughts on
Yeah.
some of the artistry technical categories before we move to like writing and acting,
I feel
etc.?
everything is it was all quiet. No, well, you're here you go. Wait, no, that's writing. No,
I'll just say quickly. I'll just say quickly before we move on, unless Grandmaster who has something else.
I can't find anything. No.
I feel like there's been like a lot said about like, the corporation of this awards ceremony in the sense of like showing the Warner Brothers like montage. And like really, really focusing on that specific studio. Here's my take. That was a great montage, and Warner Brothers has like some great movies. So,
True.
I mean, if they're able to kind of like, if they have like going as far back as like Casablanca all the way to like, Harry Potter 7, if like that's like, if you're able to like create montages with like a bunch of hits in between those, like, yeah, you deserve a spotlight at the Academy Awards. Like, I don't know, Netflix isn't there yet, Apple TV, has Coda, but they're not there yet, so
God,
I'm here.
no.
If Universal wants to have like a montage next year and like do all their hits, I'm good with it. Yeah. Like, so I don't know if I'm going to sound like a capitalistic person, but, I think I kind of enjoy how the Gaming Awards does, like, I mean, they kind of do it overboard. But they use it as like a time to showcase trailers for upcoming things, upcoming games.
True.
And it looks like that's what, the Oscars did this year with like The Little Mermaid. If they want to do like 3 spotlights every year, I'd be good with that. If they wanted to give like Barbie and Oppenheimer a segment, and then have like a new trailer play, I'd be good with that going forward. Yeah, I know like some people might not be into it, but I was kind of all right with seeing it, so much so I'd be okay with it expanding. So
I do think when montages are done well, I have a hard time rooting against them. I actually think the intro montage is pretty good.
Intro was good, yeah.
Like we saw.
Yeah, I thought it was good too. Good montage.
Nominated films, things that weren't nominated, some of the behind the scenes. I think of like, the folks who do the sound and all this. So I think costuming, etc. So we saw some good stuff in that first montage. So I do like a good montage. Let's talk about, just check in on screenplays before we talk about the acting, directing, best picture winners. But of course, original went to Everything Everywhere All at Once. Adapted went to Women Talking. Any thoughts?
Are y'all happy about Women Talking? Y'all saw that, no?
Mm-hmm.
I was happy. Yeah, Dr. Rika, you can go first.
I was happy. I think, was it my favorite of the 5 here? No. Did I think this was the likely outcome? Actually, yes. It's something that I had been thinking of in terms of the adapted screenplay of Where the Tides Were Turning. I believe she had also won some awards leading up to this for adapted screenplay. So Sarah Polley, of course, wrote and directed. I was fine. I was fine with it winning screenplay. For anything else, like for example, Best Picture, it was on my lower as far as ranking was concerned. I think just because movies are a visual medium, and I think visually it was quite lacking. Although the acting was pretty good, the back and forth between the different characters, which I think is then a testament to the screenplay and what it had to offer and what it had to say. So I was fine with this as a win.
I mean,
yeah. Similarly, I think. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Did you see? Okay, I'll just going to quickly say that you know, I think it's like kind of, you know, for lack of a better term, nice to see like women filmmakers just kind of win awards. You know, especially in like these kind of like competitive categories, you know,
Male dominated.
Similar, yeah, you know, similarly like Jane Campion last year. That was like great. So seeing Sarah Polley, like, even though like wasn't my favorite movie, and like as Dr. Rico was saying, like the best picture category, but like, you know, that adapted screenplay category was kind of lacking in my opinion, you know. So you know, I wasn't like, there wasn't like one I was like really rooting for in that category. So to just see Sarah Polley win, I think I was like good with that. Grandmaster, did you want to say something?
Yeah, this was just a category I thought, you know, they had Glass Onion on there, Top Gun, you know, I actually had All Quiet winning this one, because I just knew all the buzz around it. I'm fine with women talking. I still haven't seen it, so I can't really speak on it. But yeah, I would have liked to seen Top Gun or Glass Onion again. Just kind of a switch up of what we are, or what the Academy deems as, you know, Oscar worthy. I mean, I think Rian Johnson has already proved his worth. But you know, a film like Top Gun, I'm glad it's here. I think it could have took this one because I knew it wasn't going to take Best Picture or anything. But you know, people were engulfed by the screenplay of Top Gun, everything surrounding it. I thought this could have been a chance for it, but it's fine. But this was a category I definitely was like, I don't know who's going to take this one. This one was a question mark, while most of them were not.
And so original screenplay, of course, Everything Everywhere had won. Thoughts?
I'm for the Everything Everywhere segment of this program. It begins.
Yes, because they are
now.
Beginning of the end.
They're also the rest of the winners we'll talk about, except for one, is Everything Everywhere.
Except for one.
Okay, so I feel I came in really hot during our preview about this film, and I was like, it better win everything. And then when it actually started winning everything, I don't know, it kind of took away from my excitement.
A little boring.
Maybe. I mean, I definitely wanted it to take top honors, but original screenplay, I mean, we talked about it. This one I felt really could have gone anywhere. I think all these screenplays here were really good. Yeah. You know, if I were to give Tar anything, screenplay would be it, because those monologues she runs through, her lines, like those would be fun things to just learn to quote randomly at people and see if they know, and if they don't, they look like a dummy, because she makes
it's a good way to judge screenplays. It's a good way.
If you can quote them and make people feel like they're dumb,
you can memorize them and use them in everyday life and see if anybody picks up on it.
I'm sure if I quoted Lydia Tarr a day, I would become an asshole.
Yeah. I'm sure. No, I agree with you. You know, I think out of these five, I think I did catch Triangle of Sadness before the program started, so I was able to catch that. Even that screenplay, I was kind of like, you know, there was moments I enjoyed. But I'm with you. It felt like this would have been a cool moment, especially if you know, they're going to take director, they're going to take best picture, they're going to take actress, supporting actor, supporting actress. Everything Everywhere is going to have its time in the sun, and it's going to be great, and we're all going to clap. This would have been a nice moment to honor the Banshees of Inisherin, the Fablemans, or Tar, even Triangle of Sadness, if you're a big Triangle of Sadness fan, and just give them one award.
Right. Just one. This would
have been their only award.
God, complete shutouts.
Yeah. And, it's like, historically, it always feels like, and I think we talked about this in the last pod, of like, screenplay is a chance of, just being able to honor maybe the one that's a little more kookier, that's like kind of you know, maybe a little more fun, but doesn't have like the technical kind of like prowess of like maybe something that'll end up winning Best Picture. And nope, they went with the Best Picture, which has happened in the past, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But,
I'm looking up the last few years. So last year, Belfast won Best Original Screenplay. Of course, we know Coda had taken. Promising Young Woman won Best Original Screenplay in 2020 and 2021.
I thought that movie was never going to win Best Picture, but I enjoyed that movie, and it was cool to see it win screenplay. Promising Young Woman.
I have a lot of problems with it, but that's not this podcast.
Okay.
Parasite, of course, we've already brought up Parasite. Green Book, which I don't like to bring up. Get Out, Manchester by the Sea, Spotlight, Birdman, Her. So yeah, it kind of toggles back and forth, or at least over the last few years, and and quick Googling of who's won, of either being able to award, like you said, something that maybe is likely not to win Best Picture, but we were wanting to honor the ideas it brought, something new or fresh, or it's likely honoring the Best Picture. And so this did feel like one of those years in which it was just going to align. I think it likely helped that the Best Picture was something that I think in a different universe, wink nudge, Everything Everywhere likely probably would have been like an original screenplay winner, maybe one or two of the actor winners, but nothing else. But I think
absolutely.
like in a different time, but in terms of like this year just wasn't that time. And it certainly racked up. I think we'll probably have a conversation around A24 because it won the most awards of the night as a production company. I think they know how to work the Oscars. They know how to do this.
They won all the big ones?
They did. They won all the big ones.
Yeah. Wow.
A24 on the come up.
And they've had a really good decade. So I think
they're here.
Yeah.
They're a threat.
That feels like a big piece of it too, is just like in what ways I think the Banshees of Inisherin is such an interesting kind of to slide it over into kind of actor in a leading role. Feels like a really interesting missed opportunity. I felt like there was a lot of momentum as it like dropped on HBO Max. Golden Globes happened where it did win best, screenplay, and it did win Colin Farrell some.
Did it win Best Picture or no?
No.
They have
the
two, I know.
did.
It was the Fabelmans and
Colin.
Oh, but the Golden Globes has two Best Pictures, right?
Oh, it has comedy, musical,
comedy, and then
drama,
comedy, musical, and then drama.
Which I think is really weird, but
I digress. The point is that at that point in time, so very early, we're talking about
it did win musical or comedy. The Banshees did.
Yes, Banshees
Best Picture. It did win at the Golden Globes. So it was a real threat.
So yes, it had some momentum going in. And I think what's so fascinating is we were really having a conversation around Colin Farrell and Austin Butler as the kind of the two that were maybe leading this Best Actor race. And I'm really curious about kind of what fell off in terms of the Banshees as a whole, but then even in Colin's performance. Which of the four that were nominated, I think it was my opinion he had the strongest of the four. But I do think it's really fascinating that the tides turned, where then we're looking at Austin Butler a little bit more, and then Brendan Fraser kind of swooped in.
Do y'all ever watch those roundtable talks where they get like?
I do, yeah.
Okay, I watched the one with the actors. It was Austin, Colin, Brendan, Adam Sandler, and then my boy Pope, Jeremy. I think it's Jeremy Pope. Yeah. That was a really good one. I don't know if the Academy watches that stuff, but maybe that played a part. I don't know. Austin Butler was over here doing his Elvis voice still, and I don't know, but maybe they're like, oh, how is he outside of this movie? Do I like him still? I don't know. I'm sure that's not an actual thing, but interesting tidbit. Those are really good to listen to if you never listened to those before.
The clips usually find me on Twitter, but I don't think I've ever sat down and watched the whole thing.
Oh no, I definitely sat down and watched a good couple of them. Where are we at? Original
Well,
still?
no, we're talking about actor in a leading role.
Actor in a leading role.
And Brendan Fraser's big kind of comeback story.
Which I don't even really know the
his gigantic
story.
comeback story, but also like I don't know, coming back in this race, it feels like, you know.
I mean, I know Dr. Mondo was giving him high praise for him deserving it. I don't know what really happened in between. I feel like 2008 was the last time I saw him.
Well, to give you like the quick version, there's actually I believe like a really good article that's out about like that came out quite a while ago about Brendan Fraser. When he first kind of started coming back to film, coming back to TV, he's in Doom Patrol, etc.
Doom Patrol, right?
Yeah. The quick of it is, I know he had a lot of like medical injuries from previous films, and so his body certainly took a hit. There was a pretty messy, I think, personal situation in terms of like a divorce, but then also he was sexually assaulted and had talked about it openly. And this person was like a high exec that was related to the Hollywood Foreign Press, which of course is related to the Golden Globes, and he was blackballed.
Oh wow!
And so because he spoke openly about that, started to get less opportunity to be involved in Hollywood, so it was really shunned out. So he was doing a lot of really smaller roles. I think until he started to be plugged into a few different things, Doom Patrol being one of them. I think that was more consistent. And then this was like, as far as like, I would say, quote, prestige, was his big kind of comeback to that landscape, which he hadn't really been a part of since very, very early in his career. He was the blockbuster king in the 90s.
He sure was.
And so, but prior to that breakout, he was making a lot more smaller films, something like School Ties, for example. But so it is this comeback story of like he's been in the industry 30 plus years, and having the opportunity to do something that I don't know feels a little bit more involved in that like drama prestige type of category, working with Darren Aronofsky. I know a lot of people have a problem with the film but love him. I think there's a lot of good articles, and I doubt I'd be able to give a great sound clip, but there's a lot of really good articles that at least critique or provide some perspective on the film and how people felt about the film. But most of the articles also say like Brendan Fraser is just a lovely human being. And I think you could see a lot of that, to your point, in those roundtables, like just how much he just appreciated being here and getting the opportunity to share spaces and rooms and conversations with people and actors and folks that he hadn't seen in years. I think that there's a great connection between him and Kiwi Kwan. It's wonderful that both of them won and they had that moment together. Yeah, he's one of the more, I think, I would say slight surprises, because people were pulling so hard in terms of like, oh, Austin Butler is likely going to be the winner. I think the SAGs helped give some insight that may not be the case, considering Brendan had won that.
And he won the critic.
I believe, yeah, he won the Critics' Choice, and then he won the SAG. And then Austin won the BAFTA and the Golden Globe, and then also Colin won the alternate.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting how all those kind of factor into kind of it. Part of me feels, and this kind of goes into supporting as well. There's this underlying idea that if an actor has been around, that they might be more deserving to receive the award than someone who is fresh. For example, Austin Butler is relatively fresh in the eyes of Hollywood. I know him because I've been watching him since Ned Declassified, School Survival Guide, and other Nickelodeon productions. But he's Elvis blasted him onto the map, and although he's well recognized now and given his flowers for that role, part of me feels maybe the Academy felt Brendan Fraser has done his time and put in the work, and he gave this great role. We got to give it to him, almost like they owe it to him. I feel that sometimes goes into the voting here, and I think that also plays a part in supporting whenever we're ready to talk about supporting. But with that said, I'm glad Brendan Fraser got it because, you know, I mean, I hope he keeps going and keeps making great films, but also I hope Austin Butler keeps going and making great films. This should not be it for him. He's like 31 years old, you know? This should be his launching point. He's got Dune Part 2, which I'm sure he'll be fine. And I'm sure he's going to keep going for big roles. You know, he was on stage with Denzel. Did y'all know that?
I did.
That's crazy. I never knew that. And when I read that, I was like, oh, he's working, you know? So even though he didn't take it home, I imagine this is not going to stop him. But, you know, I feel Brendan Fraser, I mean, I didn't watch The Whale, but from what I heard from the speeches, interviews, I think he deserves it. He earned it. He earned it.
Somebody made the point that like Best Actor is much less likely to go to kind of like the young, up and coming male lead. You know, I think not that like Best Actress is easier, but I think you have seen in the past like
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh
Yeah,
wow,
both, like,
yeah, absolutely. Jeez. Yeah.
They won pretty young and still in their 20s. You know, obviously you have like the people like Michelle Williams who are still waiting for her first
Amy
award.
Adams.
And you have Amy Adams, who's still Glenn Close, who's still waiting for hers. So, you know, you do have like these outliers, but yeah, like, you know, a lot of the times like the young male actor usually doesn't win, you know, best, you know, actor in a leading performance. And, you know, I think with this year, it kind of felt like, I don't want to say like it's an odd year, you know, I don't want to take away from any of these winners and any of these like nominees, but, you know, there wasn't quite that like juggernaut name. You know, there was no Denzel this year. There was no Leo this year.
No Tom.
There's no either of the Toms. You know what I mean? It was like, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise in this, if he had been nominated, like that might have been a whole different award show.
That would have been
you
fun.
Know what I mean? And so, I think it's like, I think a lot of things kind of like fell into place, you know. I still haven't seen The Whale, but you know, just comparing it to, I think, last year, or even like, you know, the actress in a leading role, you know, look at last year, it was kind of like, this is Will Smith's year. We're going to award him because he's been with us for so long and he's been such a big star. He didn't quite have that narrative, like, you know, as big as Colin Farrell is. He's not quite like mega super blockbuster movie star of 20 years the way Will Smith is, you know. And if you go over to like the Best Actress in a leading role this year, you know, you do have like a juggernaut of a name in Cate Blanchett, and you did have you know, kind of like the person that's been paying their dues, kind of waiting for their moment, and like Michelle Williams kind of like getting like, I think this was their 5th nomination, I believe.
Yeah,
in terms of
think so,
leading and supporting. But out of that came like somebody else, which was cool to see. Not to transition us over, you have anything more to say about, you know?
No, I think it's a good transition because frankly, I texted this in our group chat earlier of all 4 acting winners. This is 1, their first nomination, and 2, all of them have been in the industry in some way for multiple decades, and so there's something to this idea of kind of paying dues. I think people like a story. I think what Brendan and Kiwi have in common is that there was like, okay, they're introduced a little earlier in the career, and then there's this gap, and then there's a return. You know, a return to being able to be given an opportunity. I know Kiwi had been a stunt coordinator.
Yeah, an assistant director, yeah,
and had been engaged in that way. But I think as far as the actors, there is that piece of just like if we're given the opportunity, we can make something happen. But we just need the door to be opened. Whereas and that feels similar to Michelle and Jamie Lee, but more so like we've just paid our dues in films that aren't frequently recognized, you know, more genre films. And in this case, all the cards just happen to line up. And I imagine we all have our opinions. I certainly do in terms of, for example, Jamie Lee Curtis's win. But I'm in kind of in recognizing some of the narrative, which I think sometimes we forget to talk about in the grand scheme of things. Like sometimes Hollywood, they write stories literally for a living. And sometimes they like a narrative.
These award shows are written technically. They're produced. They have a kind of a screenplay to go off of.
And so I'm just thinking of what a voter would be taking into consideration, and there is this through line between all four winners of just like it's time in different ways, but it's time. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. It's like interesting that it like turned out that way because I think as much as we like to think of the Oscars as like merit based and kind of like it's like, well, this is the best performance, so this thing wins. And it's like, you go back and look at the past, you're like, how could this thing not have won? This is clearly better, but no, like, the history of the Oscars has always been about like the narrative. It has always been about like, maybe like people like all of a sudden like wanting to see the underdog win, and or like, oh, this person like has finally paid their dues. I think the most famous example is I think, what was the movie called? I think it was The Scent of the Woman is the movie that Al Pacino finally I haven't even seen that movie, but yeah, you know what I mean, like I think The Scent of the Woman. Scent of a Woman. Anyways, it's just like, it's like he had never won. I think it was like a 90s movie that, it was just like, a 70s and 80s star, it was just kind of like, we kind of missed it. Al Pacino, I don't know how, like, all right, let's just slide at him here, and so, I think, this, like, I think it is very narrative driven, and everybody's human. I think everybody can like fall in love with like certain stories, can fall in love with like certain people even more than like certain performances. And I think over a history it does play out where the narrative kind of like takes over.
And it's interesting because there was some conversation in the chat too about just like different winners and when they won and what they should have won for, and you even bringing up 1992. So the year that Al Pacino won was also the year that Denzel Washington was nominated for Malcolm X, and a lot of folks
take it back.
But even I looked it up. The 5 on here: Al Pacino for Son of a Woman, Tom Cruise for A Few Good Men, Robert Downey Jr. for Chaplin, Jack Nicholson for Hoffa, and then Denzel Washington for Malcolm X. So
it's a tough year.
There's
and
always
it's like, whose fault is it? Is
who?
It
well, they probably messed
it,
up not giving Al Pacino it earlier in his career.
Exactly. What I mean? Like, who won the year he was in Dog Day Afternoon? You know what I mean? Like who won that year? And it probably like just keeps going back.
It's a
back,
cycle.
so.
It's circular. Yeah. Someone gets screwed, and then they like, we got you next time.
Jack Nicholson for One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest.
Damn, that's a great one.
That's pretty good. Wow, that was a good year.
Yeah.
Someone's got to lose.
I think for a lot of the point is it's whatever is happening, whatever's in the air at that particular year. And it's true that if we do our best, I don't think anything is objective, but if we do our best to try to find like, okay, what were they given to work with in the film? How important were they to a plot? If we try to look at all these different pieces, I think each of us are going to probably have a different person that stands out more. And I think that was what some of the conversation, I imagine, Grandmaster Hoop is itching to get to.
I'm not itching. It's fine.
We're
alluding.
Actress in a supporting role. I think there was some, I wouldn't say heated, but some passionate conversation around the winner or lack of winners in terms of, Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, won for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I think different folks will have an idea of like, okay, here's what made a good performance versus what didn't, and here's who I thought should have won based off of all these different factors versus what the voters maybe would have thought. I could say, in my own perspective, she wasn't my favorite of the five. I think her character and her part was maybe the least impactful of the four characters that we were introduced to in the film. I get five. Let me not leave out Grandpa, but of the five, I think as far as importance to the film and to the plot, I thought Stephanie kind of edged that out, and not even edged that out, probably just took a rocket and straight to the top in terms of what she was able to offer. If we're comparing those two particular performances, but
well, we can start there. We can start there because one, I think it's so odd to put up, because it's rare to see two actors from the same movie be put up for the best actor or actress nomination, but it's like they don't ever second guess putting them both up for supporting. You know, for example, I have no idea. I think about this all the time. Judas and the Black Messiah, Lakeith and Lakeith was up against Daniel, and it was like, what is going on here? One of them's the lead.
Yeah.
That was so dumb.
That was weird.
I was like, why not just so you know, in this situation, you know, I get it. I guess you want to double your chances, but also they
both didn't want to go up against I think Chadwick Boseman that year is probably what happened.
Oh, is that what happened? I guess
think they were both like, all right, let's stay out of this one.
They're and like, Chad's gonna get it, and then
he didn't win,
and then he didn't get it, right? So it's like I feel they should have just put Stephanie up alone, singularly. Like I feel that would have been great. As you pointed out, she is like the emotional core of that film. You know, it's, you know, one half Michelle and one half Stephanie, and you know, they play off of each other, and the story is literally driven by their dynamic. And Deidre, Jamie Lee Curtis, is there, but like, you know, more or less her character is genuine at times and is comedic at times, but it was like the Raccacoonie guy could have served that same purpose. Harry Shum Jr. You know, I feel that's where Deidre's character falls under, you know. Just people, you gotta. Stephanie should have been alone in this category, I think. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this part of the conversation.
Yeah, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis has been like a star and kind of like, I think, you know, a legend in so many different ways, like from like being like one of the first screen queens, and then like I think for a different generation, you know, the Freaky Friday mom, and just kind of like has always been like consistently working. I think, you know, I'm not like disappointed or like mad at her winning. I think I'm most disappointed that it just never felt like Stephanie Hsu stood a chance, you know?
Yeah.
It was just like, it just felt like she was never really in the conversation. I really didn't understand why, you know? It was just like especially like being from like the same movie, if they had like in different movies and the narrative was just like, hey, it's Jamie Lee Curtis's turn. Like, sorry, Stephanie Hsu was great, but it's Jamie Lee Curtis's turn. But like, them being in the same movie kind of like made it weird, and then you kind of like throw in the Angela Bassett kind of portion of like this race too, where, you know, it's like almost, I mean, we could talk about like her reaction, I guess, where it was just like, I guess like I was a little disappointed, but I guess because I also kind of thought Jamie Lee Curtis was definitely going to win, it wasn't like surprising or anything. But then seeing Angela's reaction and kind of like maybe getting a glimpse into like how bad she wanted this, maybe I think it was like, oh, I think this stung a little. I don't know how you guys felt about that.
It's you said it. The key word here is turn. It was not Jamie Lee's turn. This is her first nomination. This was not her turn. Angela has been nominated multiple times. This was her turn. And dare I say again, I say this in our Wakanda Forever podcast, this movie is the impossible movie. You're not going to get that performance again from her. Well, one, they killed off her character.
Spoiler, jeez.
Spoiler. Two, the emotional depth that was any acting talent in that movie, and they were also in the first one, is a layered performance that you're not going to see again. So when she says, "Have I not given everything?" that line, you're never going to get that again, that emotional layer. It was her turn. And, I'm sure many people were in her ear saying, "You got this in the bag. You're walking home with the Oscar tonight," all this stuff. And I'm sure she was very humble when those people were saying that, but she did want it. And for me, who did not watch it live, I went dark all night. When I woke up and and it wasn't playing, and I was like, fuck it, I guess I'll watch the acceptance speeches. It did not even register in my head when I saw that Jamie Lee Curtis, I literally clicked on the one that said her acceptance speech. I was like, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis. Oh, wait, fuck! And then it clicked.
And I think too, in terms of this idea of whose turn is it not, etc. I am not as interested in that particular dialogue because that loses out on, say, people like Stephanie Hsu, who I think actually gave a stronger performance than Angela. As much as I love Angela and wanted her to win, just because of my own bias. But if we're looking at in terms of performance, I do think there is a tendency for women and for people of color to frequently lose out on this idea of turn and they've given etc. until really more recently. I think we saw with Will Smith, we saw even this year with Michelle Yeoh, with Ke Huy Quan, where we have gotten some pieces of it's finally their turn. So here we go. Here's the role that we were able to give them some plaudits for. But I think something that, and you all have already brought it up, that really just stood out to me is she did really want it. And not saying that the other four women didn't. I imagine that they did, and they each campaigned in their own way. But I was really sad for what has already been brought up, the overlooking of Stephanie. Really through, I think she's only received one award. I think it was the Independent Spirit Awards had recognized her for, I think, Breakthrough. So I was really, really disappointed with how overlooked her performance had been, considering, yes, she is that emotional crux, but also because it's just so goddamn good. But also in terms of Angela, and something, I saw a lot of discourse around just her reaction, and I won't use a lot of podcast airtime to talk about how we should not be policing the ways in which Black women are able to emote and express themselves. But don't do that because if you want to compare, Diane Warren looked pissed when she lost. And she was allowed to do so, and there was no discourse around that. So stop trying to tell people how they should or should not be feeling. So because she was disappointed, you could see it on her face, and she's allowed to be. I think many decades of work, and she had, of course, been nominated before, and I think she really did want this for a variety of reasons. And it felt like more than just a performance. I think the meaning of the film, of kind of Chadwick being connected to this, that this is the last time we'll see her as this character, I imagine, considering what did happen in the film. I think there was a lot of layers to this. That disappointment makes sense, and I'm sad for her. And at the same time, I'm not gonna trash Jamie Lee, who's a wonderful person who spoke a lot about and advocated around just trans rights and having some conversation around her experience being a parent of a trans daughter during the presser. And so there's a lot that, I don't want to tear other folks down for the sake of trying to prop somebody else up. I do think the Academy in this case, I don't agree with their decision. So
Yeah, I don't want to bring Jamie down either. It just so happens, she fits a narrative that a lot of people are going with. And again, all of them were good in their roles. Whether or not you feel one is superior than the other, it just so happens it's an arms race at the end of the day. So it's just really unfortunate. Probably the most unfortunate for Angela, and then probably second most unfortunate for Stephanie. I'm sure Carrie and I don't even know, Hong Chow will get another chance. I'm sure they'll be all right. I'm sure Stephanie will be all right. I do say that. But there will never be another movie like this, Everything Everywhere, in another 20 years. And then Angela, I doubt she's gonna, I don't know. I can't imagine what role you're gonna put her in to get her that Oscar back. So
the thing is, you had said Angela had been like nominated elsewhere, but it was only one other time.
That's enough. That's enough.
It was 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's probably why it stung. It's just like, she gets it like, early on in her career for like a pretty great role. And next thing you know, it's been like 20 years, and that's like she hadn't been nominated for anything else. So
not to say she's not out here, doing a body of exemplary
I might
work.
be doing bad math. 1993. That was 20 years ago, right?
No, that's 30 years ago.
Oh yeah, it's 30 years ago. Did you forget how old you are?
I always just feel like the 90s are 20 years ago, right?
Like
we're in the 2020, so they're 30 now.
Yeah, wow. 30 years ago. And that's tough.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? I do want to, get onto supporting actor, and then of course lead actress before we tie up with director and best picture. Any final thoughts?
I think I'm okay. I got it out. Have I not given everything? There.
Well, certainly some of the ones that we did anticipate based off of just the run up, the momentum. So Michelle Yeoh, Ki Hui Kwan. Any thoughts? I was just thrilled in terms of both of them. I think, of course, myself and Hooper TV had a lot of conversation around Cate Blanchett. Just that particular performance being fantastic. But I just the visual of Michelle Yeoh just holding the Oscar. I was just absolutely thrilled for her,
and I think they strategically had Halle Berry up there to have
absolutely.
Are you last person of color, woman person of color to win Best Actress?
Well, it would have been weird had she not won.
Well, sometimes the Oscar kind of rolls the dice that way.
I guess
they did it 2 years ago. Chadwick.
Wait, who's up to present for that one?
They moved Best Actor to the final award.
Oh God, idiots! To
give it like the climactic moment.
That is upsetting.
I think it was directed by Steven Soderbergh. And I think he they Ocean's 11. I think like somebody made the joke like, yeah, he like bet the whole house on this moment. And it didn't pay off. But anyways, that was last year. That was a couple years ago. This is this year. That was great. Yeah, as much as like I think you may have been like, oh, I want like Kate's great performance to be honored. It's hard to kind of like see Michelle take the stage in that moment, be the second woman of color to be awarded this, high honor, and then just give a great speech. Yeah, it's like hard. I can't imagine, anybody sitting there mad or pouting. Like, it was a great moment. So,
oh yeah, well deserved. Nothing more to say, man. So sorry, Cate Blanchett. You can run home to your 3 Oscars and cry about it.
She is too.
Still only 2. Only 2 now.
10 nominations.
Has she been nominated 10 times? That's crazy.
I don't know. I made that up.
Okay.
What was I going to say? And then I think it was actually a really wonderful moment as far as Ariana DeBose, just the voice crack.
Oh,
that
her
she's
voice
reading.
super cracked.
Yes, Kiwi Kwan's name. I thought it was a really just lovely, real, earnest Oscar moment, which I don't know. It didn't feel like we had a lot of those throughout the night in terms of just like strong standout speeches or just really wonderful like reading card moments. So I thought that was one of those that we at least got.
Well, her voice, she was holding back tears from when she didn't get to read Angela's name out loud, and so then the sadness turned to joy after reading Key's name. So
I'm pretty. Was Key not first?
Oh, was he?
Yeah,
it might have been first.
He was first, and then it was.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Forget what I said. Forget what I said. I'm making up narratives.
You're making up a lot of stuff tonight. But I think he, of course, has had some really wonderful enthusiasm. I don't know if y'all saw the Good Morning America video of him and Brendan Fraser, but if you can find the clip, it's on Twitter. But he was just like, "Good Morning America," and just like screaming. It's really, really wonderful, super infectious.
In terms of foregone conclusion, that one felt like the best. It was like the award season started, and it was kind of like felt like he was like the front runner. I think everybody was like supportive of his narrative. It didn't quite feel like anybody else had like mustered even a narrative to kind of compete with his. You know what I mean? Because it's like, we've all, you think like we've all seen Indiana Jones and Remember Short Round and what else? He was also in
the Goonies. He's Data.
Goonies? I haven't seen the Goonies, but I remember Short Round. And
come on, man.
I think that's like part of like the magic of like seeing him again or like seeing that movie, and it's either somebody tells you maybe before, it's like, yeah, that's like so and so from like this movie, or it's like you get through the whole movie and then somebody tells you after, you're like, wait, what? That's him? Where's he been? And so I think that narrative felt good, and him being like the front runner the entire time, I don't think ever lost any steam. Never kind of like
it was unanimous.
Never felt like it lost momentum. You never really doubted it, and then when it finally happened, it wasn't like it was still great. You're still so happy for him. So it was great seeing him.
Absolutely. And I think he had some pretty good speeches throughout. I think the hard part when you are kind of you're a lock is how can I make each speech feel a little bit different but keep the same theme of like gratitude and in his case, family and his origin story, etc. So I just think, it was really wonderful to see him on stage and just his joy and the energy throughout this entire season.
He
Are
hugged.
We ready to?
Well,
wait. Are we ready to?
Fine.
Are we ready to transition, or is that what you're about to do?
Well,
okay.
Sure.
Well, the Oscars doubled down again. They said, like, how can we roll the dice? Like, who can we bring out to present Best Picture? They wanted the moment.
Oh, you think they did? You think they set this up? I guess.
Of course.
I guess. Of
course.
Wow.
Of course,
I see it now. I guess it is pretty random to get the Harrison Ford to present Best Picture.
The photo. They got the photo.
They got
circulating on Twitter.
We're gonna get it.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, like Harrison Ford presented Best Picture, famous for, amongst many other things, Indiana Jones, in which he co-starred with one Ki Kwan, who wasn't going by that name back then.
He was going by Jonathan Kwan.
Jonathan Kwan back then.
Yeah.
And Short Round and everybody's favorite Indiana Jones adventure, The Temple of Doom. Is that considered the worst, or
did
the one with Shia LaBeouf kind of take that?
Yeah, the Shia LaBeouf one took that title, but Temple of Doom is probably considered the most offensive of the Indiana Jones.
Okay. I still, Short Round's still a beloved character.
Well, that's
that
not because
movie.
it's not him
And-
who's offensive. It is the portrayal of the
Yeah, I know
Indian
it's
culture.
the native
Yeah,
people,
right.
wherever that temple's located. But Short Round, great. And so we got to see the Indiana Jones present the Best Picture winner to Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Kiki Kwan was able to take the stage and give Harrison Ford a hug and kind of almost reenact a photo. I don't even know if they were trying to do that parallel so closely like that. They're definitely trying to create a moment in which they were able to have an interaction like that on the stage, in which Steven Spielberg sat in a chair in front of them. So I mean, pretty great.
I think they did zoom.
He directed, he directed all the into. I was just gonna say he definitely directed the second Indiana Jones. I think.
No, he directed all of them.
Steven Spielberg. He's not directing the next one.
Yeah, no, he's not directing the
I
next
think
one.
he's out on the next one.
Yeah, they got the guy who's good at wrapping up franchises. Yes, they got the shot. Great shot. They also won directors. Gave another speech. What was it? Their second one of the night?
Yeah, so they did original screenplay, director, and briefly Best Picture. I think Best Picture, the producer had a little bit more airtime.
Right, the producer, whose name escapes me because I didn't even know who that guy was. Which I always feel weird about the producers. I'm like, who are y'all? What'd you really do?
Well, they always get to take the stage for Best Picture.
They do, right. That's why George Clooney has so many Academy Awards.
Is that right?
Well, he doesn't. I don't know how many he has, but I know he has some.
Are you making up something again?
No, George Clooney. I think he won. I think George produced Argo.
We're on a podcast in which people can pause us and look stuff up and immediately know
yes,
if we're wrong.
George Clooney has an Oscar for Argo because he produced Argo.
I think Brad Pitt took the stage for 12 Years a Slave.
For 12 Years a Slave, yes, he did. He was up there.
Yeah, I think I remember that happening. Being like, wait a second, what's Brad Pitt doing up there?
Yep.
And that's Plan B production company. I'm pretty sure.
Plan B. Yes, it was. But I mean, was it a surprise? I don't think it was a surprise.
No, yeah. As we've said, foregone conclusion, but I think it kind of took a little bit of air out of the fun or the excitement, but it wasn't I don't think disappointing or anything like that. It was all right, they did it. They succeeded. So
how many wins do they walk away with?
7,
and that's not the most still for one night. What is the most? It's Lord of the Rings, no?
I think 12. Mm-hmm. Yeah, did Lord of the Rings go 12 for 12 or something?
No, they lost. I actually I had just pulled it up. They definitely lost.
They did
one
11.
category.
12. It should be what's the Chariots?
Oh, Ben-Hur.
Yes, I believe that is the most winningest.
Because Lord of the Rings didn't have any actor ones. Oh, not
okay.
Well, at least not Return of the King.
So 3 films have won 11. Ben-Hur, Titanic, and Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. They each won 11. So nobody's got into 12 yet.
Okay.
Interesting. And I was only asking that because although Lord of the Rings was the last film to kind of, I feel, have that giant sweep. I don't know. Everything Everywhere is now the most award-winning film.
In terms of some of the other,
overall.
Yeah, I think that's what they've been.
Actually, I think they got that before the Oscars.
I believe so. Yeah, there was some kind of statistic coming out. I think in terms of just my overall thoughts, I was very excited. Of course, I've talked on many different podcasts about how much I did really love the movie. I think the fact that we're here a year later, having a conversation about it and that it won feels pretty special in terms of how frequently films that come out much earlier in a year, if they're able to last or not. I thought it was impressive. Just that I think by now it was a foregone conclusion. It wasn't like that. It didn't feel like that in January. I think it was a slow build in terms of like, wait a minute. By the way, have y'all checked this out? We should be watching this more. We should be considering it more, because I remember having conversations with folks about the Golden Globes, about the things that were upcoming in January, and it was not feeling like it was everything everywhere. I think it was in the conversation. Like, folks would say it's part of the 10, but in terms of it actually being number one, that wasn't the case. So I think it was just really impressive that a genre film, that's something that is an independent film, that, and even at the box office, relative to how much it costs to make it, it was impressive. But relative to, say, things like Marvel or DC or Disney, etc., it didn't make that type of money. A lot of Best Picture winners don't. But regardless, I think there's just something special. Yes, it was kind of inevitable by this point in time here in March, but I think there's something special about this particular win, similar to what I had shared maybe in previous podcasts and other conversations. Is I just hope this encourages filmmakers or writers, directors, producers, actors, whatever, all the folks who are part of putting together a film to take opportunities, to take chances, and that studios will support people in taking those chances. I think every so often we've kind of come up for air and have these moments. I think Shape of Water felt like one of those moments, Parasite, where it's like, oh, this feels like something that is different than what we've seen in times past. And it's my hope, because I enjoy it, so this is of course my own perspective, that we continue to see just things that are creative, a little weird, with some pretty solid performances and filmmaking come together and be celebrated. So I was thrilled.
Yeah, no, I just feel, I keep coming back to, there won't be a film like this in another 20 years. I feel this is a big celebration, for the Asian community gets to celebrate that. That's for them. They got that, and we just enjoyed it just as a film that just proves new grounds for everything that you just said, as far as, writing and ideas, and just putting forth these performances of people who were almost basically written off by Hollywood, or one note or whatnot. And so I feel, we are gonna, and I mean, I hope this isn't a thing, but I feel in the next couple of years, it's gonna kind of go back to routine. I feel we're not gonna, it's gonna be a while, I really think, until we get a film like this, but I feel we're gonna get back to kind of your generic outings at the award seasons, these truly baited films that come out and you're like, okay, gotta watch these melodramas and whatnot. And I really hope that's not the case. I really hope they keep pushing for films like this. I would say, that next A24 project with Joaquin Phoenix looks like it could be something. I don't know what it's called, but it looks zany.
Afraid.
Which one?
I was afraid.
That one.
I will say that as much as I would like to support that idea, the one thing that the Academy does not like is horror.
Oh, is that a horror? I don't even know what that thing is. I can't even tell what that thing is.
It's Ari Aster.
Yes.
And
he okay. It doesn't look like it though, but
sorry
it
to
is
stole your shine.
No, it's fine. It's him. I just hope we see a push. And again, when I see a film like this win, I'm like, all right, Black creators, let's go. Latinx creators, let's go. Any pockets of people of color, let's go. Keep pushing your stories, your ideas, and then just in general, keep pushing filmmakers idea, LGBTQ plus. I really like when one of the Daniels came out and said, thank you, mom and dad, for not bashing me for dressing in drag. It's like, push these ideas. Greatness can come from anywhere. I want to see it more. I'm afraid that
Ratatouille.
Recca-Coney, there you go. Oh, sure. Brad Bird. Come on, Brad Bird. Where you at, Brad Bird? I'm afraid that we won't get it, but I really hope we do. So this win, I love this win for the Asian community, and I love this win for film overall.
Any
Well
final
said.
thoughts, Super TV?
Final thoughts. Final thoughts. You know, this year is interesting. I'm like looking at like kind of like the years as a whole. We may have talked about this before. I really loved 2019 when Parasite won it all, and part because I love Jojo Rabbit, I love Little Women, I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's just like this weird thing where like my favorite movies were just like not included in the Best Picture this year in terms of like Nope and The Northman and RRR. And the way you guys speak about like the creative kind of juice and energy flowing out of everything everywhere all at once, like that's kind of like what I felt towards RRR in terms of like just like how bombastic that movie is, and like for whatever reason that's like the best term I can find to describe it. You know, so it's like to your point, Grandmaster, I hope we continue like taking steps you know, in terms of like honoring kind of like the not necessarily like the most creative, but towards what you're saying, like what's like so true to people. And we'll give Everything Everywhere All at Once credit. Like it felt like a movie very specific to like these filmmakers. You know, this felt like it really came from them. And so I think if every filmmaker does that and just tries to tell the most authentic story that's like true to them, no matter like, you know, where they're from, you know, and they not trying to go for what they might think is like an Oscar movie or something like that. Yeah, I think that'll just do, yeah, just like wonders for in terms of like the movies we're seeing. And yeah, just like, I don't know, maybe we'll get like, yeah, like just like more exciting like Oscars where it's like, yo, all 10 of these movies are fantastic. Like I could see it going any direction. And that's at the end of the day, that's what we want. As much as we want like good movies, we want good competitive award shows. So that's what's important. So
I agree. And I think too that the more that there can be creativity in different ways, that we hopefully will have more of that competition, that maybe different genres, different types of filmmaking can continue to be recognized. Because I agree, there are films, of course, that I really loved that were not well represented here or at all. And so my hope is that there is a future in which that is the case. I guess really in talking about what we'd like to see, my last kind of big question and how we'll end it. Obviously, there are a ton of movies that have not come out yet, and we have a whole year until the next Oscars. But there's some buzz. You know, we know of what may be on the horizon in terms of whatever's going to come out, whatever's going to premiere at different festivals throughout the summer. I'm curious if there are, and we're going to call this like the early bird picks, things that maybe you think we'll hear about this time next year. Categories, things like that, doesn't matter. I'm just like, in general, what do you think may be having a conversation about being represented in award season?
So I'll just go quickly and say that, you know, speaking of filmmakers who are remaining true to themselves, it's like, say what you want about Christopher Nolan. Like that guy tells stories that he wants to tell. You might not be into it, but like that's what he's into. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you talk about like a subject matter, like meeting like the right filmmaker,
oh gosh,
it really feels like the creator of the atom bomb. Like it's like meeting like, you know, the only other person might have been who's the director of those Transformers movies?
Michael Bay.
Like Michael Bay. That only might have been like a better connection, but like, you know, like Christopher Nolan, like, you know, famously blew up a stadium. Didn't he like actually blow up like you know, an actual bank for The Dark Knight or something? To get like an explosion.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
All I'm saying, this guy likes big. He likes things blowing up.
Likes practical.
Yes, he likes practical effects, exactly. And it feels like, you know, I'm you know, Oppenheimer, I'm gonna go definitely Best Picture, definitely Best Visual Effects, definitely
Sound.
a lot below the line categories in terms of at the very least being nominated. And then same with Dune Part 2. I think Dune was absolutely nominated for a lot of below the line categories. And I think one thing holding it back was that it didn't feel like a complete movie. You can go back and listen to our Dune podcast. I think we spoke about that there. You know, I definitely could see that movie also kind of like getting a Best Picture nomination and a lot of below the line in terms of like costume design and like makeup and hairstyle and stuff like that. Grandmaster, you got something?
I mean, if I'm going off of films I've already seen this year, you know, hey,
in the 2.5 months.
Here, listen, she got to present an award and she brought her co-star, Cocaine Bear, for adapted screenplay. Possibly.
Absolutely not. What is that adapting?
The actual story of the Cocaine Bear.
That's a book? What is
it's
that?
It's a news article.
I don't know about that. But sure, okay.
But I mean, other than that, I mean, going off of what you said, I think Oppenheimer, I think has the largest recognizable cast I've ever seen of a movie. Like you name an actor, predominantly white, they're in that movie.
It's true. Like, it's a lot of folks.
It's true. Hold on. Here's the thing. Yo, Christopher Nolan, you gotta give him credit. He's good at like hiding his white actors. I promise you, I did not recognize a single person in Dunkirk. People told me Harry Styles was in that movie.
That's because you didn't know what Harry Styles looked like.
I could not find him to save my life.
You weren't a Harry Styles fan back then.
Everybody looked the same. I think he does a good job of like hiding them. So
you were not a Harry Styles fan back then.
I felt like you would.
Any additional films, Grandmaster Hoop?
Gosh, I don't even know what's really coming out. One, I mean, yes, there is the Barbie movie, which I'm sure is going to get a lot of looks. As I said, that one movie with Ari Aster and Joaquin Phoenix. I know they don't like horror. They've taken a chance on horror before. You know, Get Out did relatively good at the Oscars, all things considered. But honestly, no, I don't know what's on the 2023 schedule.
I'm surprised you haven't mentioned animation, because it looks like animation's gonna have a really strong year.
Animation. Elemental's coming out.
Elemental. Disney has Wish. Obviously, you have
Spider-Man.
Oh, Spider-Man. Yeah. Oh, Spider-Man could go for the repeat.
Super Mario Brothers movie.
But
I don't know if that's really an Academy movie, but
Illumination's been up for Academy Awards before. Despicable Me's have been nominated. I think Secret Life of Pets, whatever. But you know, with animation, you know, I think it's the sleeper hits that are really going to, you know, animation is cinema. No one saw Pinocchio coming. Wendell and Wild didn't get a lot of love this year, but you know, stop motion returned to stop motion. I'm leaving. I'm leaving animation up for grabs because I know there's gonna be a sleeper that comes out of nowhere. But yeah, honestly, I don't know what's on the lineup. I used to look this stuff up all the time on Wikipedia, like what's coming out in 2023. Ooh, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Wow, there's another one. Let me stop. Dr. Rico, what do you have on the chopping block?
Well, I don't know if that's the right analogy or phrase.
What do you have on a silver platter?
Similar to you, I'm curious about what the reactions to Barbie will be. I don't know if we'll get Killers of the Flower Moon, but of course, people love Marty. We actually, a couple of the big guns are coming back. So Martin Scorsese, I believe, who was it? Ridley Scott has Napoleon. Starring Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay.
Also, is Joker 2 coming out this year?
No, that'll come out probably next year.
I was about to say, Joaquin Phoenix, like, he's been working.
He's working.
Okay.
Air, depending on kind of the perception, but historically, Ben Affleck has done pretty well at the Oscars.
I'm excited for Air.
So we've got Air. Let's see. There were a few things that had popped up on my. I don't think this is this year, but I know Adam Driver, I believe, is going to be in Ferrari by Michael Mann. That could be
I think
something.
that might be.
He's also in
year.
that 60. He's in that 65 movie.
Oh, stop.
I also don't know if this is going to come out this year, but Maestro, which is Bradley Cooper's second feature film that he'll direct.
Ooh, I am all in on Bradley Cooper. Yes, he's winning Best Actor for that role.
So there's a couple, and then there's some smaller films I'm just like personally interested in that I don't know if it'll even touch the Academy, but yeah. So I imagine those films that I mentioned, if they come out this year, may have some conversation around it. Whether or not they make it to the year, we'll see. But that is our Academy Awards recap. I think it's been an interesting, but also at the end, kind of predictable set of winners, more or less, yeah. But I've appreciated getting to spend some time talking about movies. I'm excited about what's to come. I certainly will have the film festivals that'll give us maybe some insight on what we need to be watching out for. Any last thoughts? Or?
Let me say this, just for anybody listening and for y'all too. If you really like Everything All at Once, Michelle Yeoh, Ke Quan, and Stephanie Hsu got a whole new show together on Disney Plus.
That is true.
I think it's called Chinese Born American. That seems like, I don't know what the hell.
It just feels like they're coasting off of their.
It does, but I'm going to tune in just to see what's going on. I think it's crazy that they're all in another project together. I'm going to tune in.
My final thought is Indiana Jones needs to hand the reins to Ke Quan at the end of the movie. At the end of his new.
I don't think he's in the movie, but
they can always.
All he needs is needs just a cameo, just like they need to just a quick I'm saying he might not have been in the original screenplay. That's fine, but now that we know that he's doing well and he still has plenty of talent and he can pull off some action scenes, I think it's time he hands over the reins. And if they had to do some quick filming, some quick additional scenes need to be filmed before it gets released, they should do it. So I'll be looking for that.
Sure.
Well, my final thoughts are many of the movies that we have discussed today have been discussed on other podcasts. So give us a follow, give us a listen. And we're on all the various social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. And we have a Discord channel and some streaming of some video games that I don't know anything about, but our friends do. They do those things and they stream them and they talk about them. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, that's available too. So all of your various nerd interests, video games, anime, TV shows, movies, you can find them all here at the Yanko table. Signing off.
Would you like to close off with a song this time, proper?
I will say my biggest critique about the best original songs were that, Natu Natu was probably the most fun, and we could have had more fun if you let Turning Red be present. So you're never not on my mind, my love, never gonna make you cry. Okay. Anyway.
Very good.
I wasn't actually as prepared this time as I was last time. But this is us. This is the awards wrap up. We'll see you next year